This video is going to talk about a general idea of what a mathematic relation is and a very basic introduction to what functions are. Now in mathematics, a relationship of a function. A relationship is basically a pair of input values with output values. Now we have a lot of different names for input. One of the first things that we learn in math is that an input's known as a domain. Another name for this is the independent variable. And when we're talking about the output variables, you're going to frequently hear that being called the range. And another name for that would be the dependent variables. And you're going to need to be familiar with all of those different kinds of descriptions. And when we're talking about all of these relationships, we've got a couple of different ways to represent those. Now the first one is called mapping. Now that did not work well. There we go. Okay, mapping is basically either a box or sometimes I've seen them as ovals, but what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have the input, also known as the x value, I should probably add that, in one box, and then it's going to be linked to one of the output values, which we frequently call y. An example, if I have an x value of 2, then I can have a, b, and c for y. Now if you ever wanted to see what this relationship would be, I could say I have 2a, 2b, or 2c. Now, another familiar way that a lot of us see this type of information is with an ordered pair. We would end up writing this 2a, 2b, and 2c. This means the exact same thing mathematically. I would like to remind you this also can be done with a table. If you have an x and y table, just like the ordered pair, you would have to make sure that the 2 would be written with the 2a, the 2b, and the 2c. Now, the next word we need to talk about is what a function is. Now, a function, it is a special type of relationship, and this is one where only one output value is there for every for every input value. Now, that's a fancy way to say it. The way I usually remember this is if you know what x is, so I tell you x is 6, there's only going to be one possible y. You'll notice that if I know x, which is 2, do I only have one choice for y? Now the answer to this particular example is no. Even though this is a relationship, this is not a function. And they did that so that we could take a look and see what a function actually is. Now, if I wanted this to be a function, then in my mapping, what I would need to do is say that if my x's, I want to change color there. My x's would have to be the a, b, and c, and my y would end up being 2. Now this mapping looks very similar, but what I can see is if I tell you x equals a, can you tell me what y is? So 2. There is no choice in the matter. You just automatically know that exists. Now there is a couple of ways that you can tell what these functions are going to, whether they're going to have this special type of relationship or not. So the easiest way to take a look at these and be able to tell that we have this special relationship is something called a vertical line test. And here's the way the vertical line tests are working. You have a general idea that basically x's can't repeat. So if you have a vertical line in some type of graph, this is where x is always the same number. Anything that has x's that are right on top of each other, so they have the same number, is not going to be a function automatically. So you look and see if your function touches a vertical line at the same time. If it does, then it is not a function. Let's go ahead and take a look at some examples so you'll be able to see what I mean. Okay. Here's example number 1. Now, let's say we just have something that kind of trails down like this and goes back up. Okay. Now, what I'm looking for to decide if this is a function is I want to be able to take a vertical line and move it all the way across my function, and see if the pink line is going to touch my picture anywhere twice. Now, since these arrows kind of go forever, you'll notice that my vertical line does not touch anywhere twice. This is a function because it only hits one time. Now let's take a look at, let's call that example number 1. Now let's take a look at example number 2. If we have a line going out this direction, and then we have a line going out that direction, I want to know if that's a function. So you're going to take your vertical line test. And you'll notice right here, my picture is going to touch my vertical line at two different places at once. Because I hit two different places at once, this is not a function. Now the last example. Number 3. Okay. Now this, if I have a function that goes to right here, and then I have an open-ended boundary, so basically an open circle. And underneath it, I have a closed boundary, and another line going another direction. Is this a function? When we take our vertical line test, here I'm only going to be touching my function one time. And the only thing you really have to be concerned with is this point right here, where I have my vertical line going through two dots. Now, if you were to say that x equals 1, would you know which dot you would have to be able to stand on? You should know that you have to stand on the bottom dot, because anytime you see an open circle here, we're not really allowed to be there in our function. This is open. Because this is closed, I can only be in one spot on the graph, so that is a function. Vertical line test is a very simple way to be able to identify functions. In several other videos, we'll go into more detail as to specific types of functions, but now you should have a general idea of what a function actually is.